In this video, we're going to be looking at how you can get big Google Ads results from a small budget. And after working with over 100 brands on their Google Ad accounts, I can tell you confidently that the rumors are true and size does in fact matter. Well, budget size, that is. I'm sure the other thing doesn't matter. Well, I hope not. Anyway, bigger companies that have large budgets have an advantage for quite a few reasons, mainly because they're able to test more and test quicker. They can control their search impression share and even inflate CPCs in certain industries if their budgets are huge, and be more aggressive on competitor bidding. And also, they're not always going to need an ROI quite as quickly, for example, whereas smaller companies who are getting by month on month may need to see the return immediately. Never the best way to be with marketing is needing that return ASAP, because it always doesn't lead to you making the best long-term decisions. But the reality is these big budgets only exist within a handful of companies in each industry, and they have these 6- and 7-figure budgets. But most companies don't fall under that umbrella, and the majority only have a small budget. And the smaller your budget, the more creative you need to be able to get. So in this video, we're going to go through some creative ideas to help you get big company results on your small company budget, so you can start punching well above your weight. But first off, for those of you new to the channel, my name's Ben. I've been in B2B marketing for over 10 years. Our agency manages millions of pounds a year for clients on their Google Ad spend. So when we actually talk about the stuff in this video, it's not stuff that we're guessing about, it's stuff that we've implemented, tried, and seen firsthand. So let's jump straight into the video. Let's first define what a small budget is. And this really varies from industry to industry, because say you're paying £20 per click and you only have £1,000 per month. Then again, if you're only paying £2 to £5 per click, for example, then obviously the budget is going to be relatively a lot higher. So in this generalization, we're probably saying £1,000 to £3,000 per month is what we call a small budget. Anything under £1,000 is what we call a micro budget. But then I'd say if you're paying, on the upper end of the CPC scale of like £30 plus, which we see is very common in the B2B industries that we serve, because we primarily work with B2B industries, caveat throughout this video. If you are from an e-commerce and looking for the e-commerce and shopping side of things, may not be the best video, but please still watch the whole thing because algorithm. But anyway, a lot of the expensive B2B industries are going to be £30 plus per click for the high intent commercial terms. We're probably saying anything below 5k could be considered a low budget on that end, maybe even up to 10,000. But today we're probably going to focus between the £1,000 and £3,000 mark. If you have these budgets, how do you get the best bang for your buck? So the first trick is making sure that your Google Ads strategy aligns heavily with your business direction and strategy. And that is, in this use case, only choosing one product or service to advertise. There's no point in taking, your £2,000 a month budget and looking to go after multiple product sets. It's an easy way to spread yourself thin, get your impression share really low, and not really scratching the surface of many of these markets. And the way in which you can choose that can be done from a few reasons. One can be obviously business priority. I'd say that's a good one to go after, but not always the best. The other one would be what you call your stepping stone offer. So what's the one that you see most people, when they come and work with you, there's probably offers which they may come and work with you first on and then move into later. So for us, PPC is a common one they want to start working with, and then SEO may be down in the line once we've got enough data to inform an SEO strategy. Companies think their new services are their priority and the ones they should be pushing through paid search. But if you've got ones which have been around for longer, which are more established, which you win higher rates of, and you've only got a small Google Ads budget, it may be worth looking at those ones first. But again, needs to align with your business direction. But the best way in which I think we've seen this, and from a search perspective, is to work with the person in charge of search marketing and really work out which of your products has the least ambiguity through search. A good example would be we've worked with a few, say, data center companies. And this data center also does cloud computing and cybersecurity. But we found that bidding on terms like co-location, which is another word for storing servers in a data center, or even terms like location plus data center, were terms that converted a lot higher and ones that were very sort of black and white, because if someone was searching for data centers or co-location as a very specific product, we kind of knew exactly what the intent was and we saw a much better conversion rate. So I'd much rather allocate my budget to those versus, say, bidding on terms like, generalized cybersecurity, because someone looking for cybersecurity could be looking after threat protection, they could be looking after DDoS protection, they could be looking after, just your standard antivirus. And if someone's just searching for that broad stuff, typically they're probably a bit higher up the buyer journey than something more specific. So unless you have a very tangible term and like carved out industry which has decent search volume and actually people looking for it because they know it exists, I'd say go for the ones which you found are the most black and white and actually fit the search landscape from a high intent perspective the best, which are getting good conversion rates. Again, this can be quite a nuanced point, so it's definitely worth trying to get to the bottom of this within your research and sort of putting the hours in there. Next thing, as well as just running one product and advertising one product category, would be looking at just doing one campaign type. There's no point in going on and saying, I want to do, demand gen campaigns. I want to run YouTube campaigns. I want to do all these different things, mainly because I don't ever run demand gen campaigns, especially for high CPC, B2B, definitely not. Search campaigns, we first off would be, choose your leads or sales. Again, going to do leads because we're talking about B2B sales led. And we're doing this because, again, we want to appear in the search engines at the time people are looking for these products, which we've determined in the step before. There's no point in, say, running, these as well as YouTube, as well as the other types, and like display, for example. Again, another one, I never would run display ads through Google Search Network anyway, because of a multitude of reasons I've gone across quite a few times. But search ads really should be where you'll be spending all of your budget. And if you are spending currently on other areas, I would just hone in on search, hone in on that one product, and really have a very, very targeted approach what you're going through at this period in time. If you're looking to do any objective, please just use leads. And then continue and then go on to search campaigns here. Don't click on Performance Max. Display shopping. Again, we're not having any data feeds set up with your shopping products because you don't have any, probably, if you're B2B. And then video, for example, is definitely a different strategy later down the line that we can test. But search is definitely the campaign type that I suggest at the beginning with a lead objective. And I'll go into why lead objective in a bit by going to in different videos. You can do it without goals guidance, but I prefer lead objective for some of the smart bidding stuff we'll be doing later. The next thing we're getting onto is your bidding strategy. And this is a bit of a nuanced point because there's a lot of different variables that come into play when setting both a manual bidding strategy as well as your automated bidding strategy. But to start off, especially if you have no data in your account and you're relatively new to this process, it's worth going on Google Keyword Planner, typing in the queries that you're going to be looking to bid on, and then looking at the average CPCs, which you think you should be bidding on to get a first page bid. Now, what you should be doing here would be going on to clicks and then setting a maximum cost per bid click. Again, that will come from the keyword research that you do at the beginning. Now, this is where the point gets a bit more nuanced in itself, because what I found a lot of the time is, like on LinkedIn, like on any ad platform, it recommends a top page bid for top impression share and absolute top as well. So what you can do is play around with that. And a lot of times you'll get something that's, so say like estimate first page bid would be, £50 per se, but then, and you're bidding, £50. And what you can see is you're getting really expensive CPCs, but you haven't got the budget to quite justify this. So what I've done a few times in recent years, I'm actually going to bid, £35. And I'm thinking my search loss IS ranking is going to go through the roof. But what's actually happened is it's remained the same. So I'm actually getting the same top impression share by bidding lower and losing out the same amount of clicks due to bad ad rank caused by the amount I'm bidding. But what I've done is I've tested it lower and then I've gone back up to the recommended page bid and it's getting the same number of clicks. It's not getting any more absolute top impression share. It's not getting any more top impression share. So I know there's so many different ways in which automated bidding works and manual bidding can work, and you can overpay or underpay depending on what else is happening in the lay of the land and the smart bidding, how much, deems the click is worth. But I'd try and test out bidding lower, keep an eye on the search loss rank, but also keep an eye on if you're getting the same amount of clicks and the metrics aren't really changing, but you're shaving £10 per click off, it's definitely worth seeing if that's something that you can scale in the short term. But then once you get enough data, you're actually then able to change your manual CPC to a target cost per acquisition or maximize conversions. And that's not just data in that campaign, that's going to be account wide. And the trick here is for manual bidding to be like, okay, we've got pretty high impression share of these terms, we're getting a repeatable result and we're getting enough conversions, which can be anywhere between sort of like 10 and 30 minimum, I'd probably say, but it depends completely on the industry and the amount of data that's available with search queries and conversions. And then once you found the terms and the ad groups and campaigns which are converting, you can switch over to a more automated bidding strategy. And that brings me into the next point, which would be aggressive. Be aggressive. I can't remember the movie, but I think it involves a cheerleading theme.
Be aggressive. Be aggressive.
Anyway, ignore me. So the next thing is about being aggressive, like I just said. And that kind of comes to the manual bidding is we are bidding high CPCs. We are looking to collect data. We need to make sure that we have the data being pulled through. And I'll get onto that in the next step. But what we're looking at doing here is making decisions quickly, because once we have seen that we are getting conversions for certain themes of keywords, we can say, okay, what we want to do is reduce the bidding on these other queries which aren't as proven and allocate more budget to the ones which are converting. It's that whole Pareto 80-20. You're going to get 80% of your results from 20% of your keywords. And that very much is a fact in a lot of accounts. And what you can do then is start looking at your impression share, saying, okay, so we can actually increase maybe our CPCs here. We can try and get, we can try and increase our budget for it and look to try and increase our impression share for these terms to hopefully around 80+%, because then what will happen is if you're spreading yourself too thin across the different campaigns, you may be getting 30% impression share, which means you're only appearing for 30% of the terms or the times that someone could be eligible to your ad to appear for them. What we're going to try and do is get that manually above 80%, see if we can get a repeatable conversion rate, then switch to smart conversion bidding. So once we can do it, just be aggressive, make sure you can then allocate that resource to the ones which you've seen early signs of success, which leads me on to the next one, which will be conversion tracking. So conversion tracking, especially in lead gen, especially in high order value B2B, is super important. You need to make sure that your Google Ads data is being pulled back in from the likes of HubSpot and Salesforce. You need to make sure that there's going to be 3 different levels of tracking. You've got your qualified leads, you've got so not just tracking every lead that comes through, because it could be rubbish leads that don't fit your target persona. You want to then look at your pipeline amount, and then you want to look at the actual conversion amount as well, and then see that pulled back in as primary. The key one I'd say in a lot of cases would just be the qualified leads, and then having the indicative number based off average order values there. Because sometimes big deals can skew this, and it can really sort of throw it if it's sort of in a few deals, but they're large. But it's always worth sort of knowing that stuff. But conversion tracking is key, because again, if you don't have that conversion tracking set up, the step before about being aggressive is going to be hard, because what I like to do is immediately when leads come in, go and look at the CRM data, or the team go look at the CRM data and be like, okay, we see that XYZ software, XYZ services, or XYZ product is actually converting quite well. The audience seems to like this, seems to be a good fit here. Let's go all in on these terms and remove impression share away from other terms, or reduce CPC on other terms which aren't actually performing as well. So you allocate and be aggressive quicker, because you haven't really got the luxury of bigger brands to keep spreading yourself across all these products and monopolizing on that search impression share. The next one is match type. So very similar, just trying to keep it really, really tight at this point in time, because you've got your search campaign, you've got your manual bidding for now, you have now the exact match keyword you want to go after. So there's no point in trying to be creative and doing sort of some sort of weird broad match layering strategy with different segments. Like, it's just not going to work at this stage. You're going to burn through so much money, and there's going to be no point. It's just going to be like random, because even though broad match does take into account like smart bidding factors, and you can set a broad match with CPA and then layer it with different types of data, that's more of like an account expansion strategy than it would be a starting off strategy. And even then, I necessarily wouldn't recommend it in a lot of use cases. So what I recommend is doing exact queries, so doing your keyword research, doing exact match. Exact match is kind of turning into a similar version of old phrase match, where I'm actually seeing like what is and info terms based off exact match, like commercial terms, and it's kind of getting broader and broader. So you've got to keep a close eye on these exact match terms and the close variance of them compared to even just I'd probably say 6 months ago. They're sort of creeping in, with Google being a bit more cheeky with it. I'm not sure if they're missing their latest board meeting targets or something, but something's going on. Anyway, on to the next thing, which is keyword selection. And this is kind of where you want to have a look at a CPC analysis, right? So CPCs are market led. So a lot of the time, the more expensive the cost per click in Google, the more time, or the more it kind of gives an indication that keyword's profitable, because agencies like us, in-house people, have been working out the most profitable terms and then bidding more for them. So it makes sense, they're the most expensive. So a lot of time I see an expensive keyword and I get excited, because I'm like, that's the keyword that we know we want to bid on. So you want to allocate probably more budget to those queries and then take it away from the lower CPCs, even though it's sort of worth testing them, because again, it's relative to the product and the experience that you're looking to drive your customers through. But say, for example, we type in, actually probably one of the industries we haven't worked in, actually, one of the few SaaS spaces would be recruitment software. So let's go and look at this and do bottom of page bid. So I can see here, application tracking system for recruitment agencies. Again, that actually sounds like it'd be very low search volumes. Yeah, lots of low search volume searches around here, but obviously recruitment software for staffing agencies. So these are going to be the ones which are probably the most valuable because they're looking for it across their whole agency, which I'm guessing is going to be a premium package. Don't know much about recruitment software, just sort of came into my mind. So you look at these higher CPCs, you kind of have a good guess, but it's worth definitely going through them and being sort of strategic with the CPCs themselves and being like, actually, you know what, recruitment management software, so potentially could be getting £19 CPCs. So in this industry, and in the software industry especially, is the point I was going to try and make as well, is the best CPCs across every landscape. Intent is normally indicative of the CPC level, but in software, sometimes CPCs are blown out of proportion because there's lots of funding and people are trying to just bid on these queries to get market share. So go through here and actually apply common sense knowledge, type it in, look at the organic results, go through and just sort of like run your eye over it, do the organic searches, really look at the intent behind it and test it. But what I'm saying is don't be put off by the high CPC queries, but also know that in a lot of software spaces, they're going to be overblown. So go through and give it these sort of, once over with your eyes, and then tie it back into all the stuff like the stepping stone product and everything else we spoke about earlier. Which leads me on as well to then being creative. So what are the creative strategies we can run for B2B ads? So for example, let's take Tide as an example I keep coming back to. They'll bid on Business Bank, they are a business bank. And that's about £30 to £40 cost per click. So I've looked it up in a previous video, which I'll link to at the bottom. The next one is they wanted to find a problem and how to get people onboarded. And they weren't necessarily caring about the size of the account people were opening, and they were looking to sort of future-proof it for the future. So what they did is they bid on a term saying register a business, and they appear here, and this is a super clever bit behind it, is they register for only $14.99. When I actually did this as like an example, this was when they were paying it for you. You enter in your company name, and yes, you can say it's only $14.99 instead of $50. They previously were paying for all of it. What they'll do is they'll pay the difference to register this company for you, and then you go through this process and set up a bank account. So what they've done is brought you further up the funnel. So they're saying, we know this person is going to need a business bank account once they set up their business. Let's just create it for them now whilst offering them some value and a discount here. So is there something in your industry which is the equivalent? So if you have like offboarding software or HR software that does offboarding, could you, bid on things like employee offboarding process? For someone's looking for information, you can plug that gap and be like, actually, you can just do it through our software. Or recruitment software, going back to it. Again, an example would be someone types in, best places to list job adverts, and then your recruitment software, does that all in one click anyway. To be like, do this in just one click by using this software. So it's worth testing these things, and rather than them paying the likes of 30, 40, 50 pounds upwards CPC for these software terms, you can start playing around with some mid-funnel terms which actually address the problem, and then you have a very clear differentiator in your ad text, which is like, time to value, time to benefit. Like, try these different ad copies and actually see if you can bring them through this sort of process. It's a bit more of like an indie hacking, growth hacking approach versus like a commercial term. So definitely worth being creative with that. And the final one is around remarketing strategies. So especially in the B2B space where we work a lot, or pretty much exclusively, we want to continue that conversation. So if someone types in XYZ software, XYZ services, commercial cleaning, whatever it is, you want to make sure that they hit the site. Only maximum 5%, for example, are going to convert. 95% don't, but still have some sort of organizational intent. What you can do is you can take that company or you can take that individual and automatically set them into a retargeting sequence across the likes of LinkedIn, which again is good because you can layer it again with their firmographics. And then once they've shown intent, so we want to get messages in front of them straight away. Can you get an automated email sent to them being like, saw you were looking for this. Can we help with case studies? Do you want like a bespoke quote? Do you want more information? And then you can start those native conversations within LinkedIn and get them to potentially get in contact through that medium and that channel. So there's different ways of playing it. But once you've spent the money to get a high intent person to your site, and it's a really tight keyword, match type, bidding, you've kind of got them there. You've done a lot of the work. Make sure you're not just leaving that money on the table, and take that bad boy omni-channel and speak to them across the other platforms to actually start getting the best bang for the buck. Because the best thing about the owned audiences on like LinkedIn, for example, is it's cheaper to get CPCs from people that have engaged with you previously than it is for people that are brand new touch points. We've done lots of data and studies. Anyway, do you want more information around that remarketing strategy? I'm going to end the video here, and I'm going to link that video up here so you can go and look at the Google Ads meets LinkedIn ad strategy, which will help you get better bang for your buck for B2B marketers. I hope you found that useful, guys. Any questions, please put them in the comments, and I will speak to you very soon.